For 16 years, we've been building a site that's been called innovative, insightful, and informative. Now there's a new name for it. We're now NBCnews.com.
The vigils, the reward, the Facebook campaign, the flyers, the detective, all kept Michelle's family busy and hopeful, but had ultimately been unproductive. They were nowhere. And it was just at that point when Mark Klass stepped into the life of the Lay family.
I met the family in a dingy motel on the side of the freeway in Hayward, California, at about 11 o'clock in the morning, and they were all huddled inside this little room.
To the Lay family, Klass was like the cavalry riding in.
We were all in our pajamas, like disheveled, and we were all together on our laptops, trying to edit press releases, trying to organize all the interviews, and reading the news, trying to talk to the police.
And I looked around and I said, the first thing you people need to do is get out of this room.
Dark and depressing.
It was horrible. It was horrible, and they were so downtrodden. They had absolutely no idea of what to do or where to go.
And he sat down and gave us a list of what to do. We had to find a search center. We had to get volunteers. We had to position media in this sort of light. He was just giving us all sorts of tips.
It made a world of a difference emotionally and on practical levels.
But what Mark Klass didn't do was burden the Lay family with his own story. Didn't tell them about his own daughter, Polly, kidnapped 2 decades ago.
That was the worst time in my life. It shattered me. It shattered my heart.
12-year-old Polly Klass was snatched from her room in Petaluma, California in the midst of a slumber party. In the ensuing weeks, teams of volunteers tramped through the muddy hills of Northern California, looking frantically for Polly, an effort lacking in coordination and focus, and it was ultimately fruitless. Polly's body was only discovered when her killer, arrested at a traffic stop 2 months later, showed detectives where he'd buried her. Do you still live with that awful week now, all these years later?
My work is my therapy.
Yeah.
My work is my therapy.
And that work through the Klass Kids Foundation is to help families find their missing loved ones by providing families with a now proven, professional, methodical approach to their search efforts.
You have to basically start in the center and work your way out, following statistics that the vast majority of people that are missing are going to be found, A, within a half-mile radius of where they went missing, or B, within a 5-mile radius of where they went missing.
Boy, this is dismal work you do.
It's not dismal. No, nothing that we do is dismal. It's hard work. It can be heartbreaking. It can be so sad. But it's not dismal. It's really good work, and it's important work, and there's just not enough people doing it.
Possibly because it's work that lays bare wounds. Hundreds of times now since Polly's death, Mark has shared his experience learned through his own parental grief with families just like Michelle's, adrift and in shock. And the first order of business, said Mark, repair the relationship with the police, which had become very frayed indeed.
We needed help from the police, and they slowly started to let us know where they thought we should be looking. And when we pressed them, why should we be looking there? Why should we be looking there? They finally said, well, because that's where the cell towers take us.
Michelle Lay, it turns out, went on a strange journey on the evening of May 27, 2011. Or at least, her cell phone did. In the 2 hours after Michelle abruptly left a training session here at the Kaiser Hospital in San Francisco's East Bay, that phone of hers left its indelible footprint through the congested streets of the East Bay. And then it turned onto a 2-lane back road, and then a major freeway, and then it pinged its way right back along the very same route, back to the parking lot. At the very moment the nursing instructor saw Michelle's car drive into that parking lot, then rapidly reverse course and speed away into the dark. A puzzle. But getting that cell phone trail from the police was also a huge break, said Mark Klass, who was now deeply involved in the search for Michelle.
It enabled us then to really hone in on what we needed to do and why we needed to do it. It was to prepare viable search locations for search teams.
But the area was vast, much of it rugged, rural. The search for Michelle would be tough, labor-intensive work. Just the sort of thing Mark Klass's organization knew how to do.
When we saw the machine in motion was when we felt that, wow, this guy and this foundation has really got it together. We would have never thought of that on our own.
Klass even flew in his director of search operations, who was one of the first volunteers to look for Polly years before.
We're going to be dealing in some pretty treacherous terrain today, as well as tomorrow. Canyon areas, lots of rocks into the ravines.
This was day 49 since Michelle disappeared. And once again, her San Diego relatives loaded into cars around midnight and drove the 8 hours north to the San Francisco Bay. Dateline was there, watching, as they gathered for a morning briefing to prepare them for the long day of searching ahead.
If you take nothing else away from this presentation, take this portion right here, okay? Every single search that we put you on today, tomorrow, we consider a potential crime scene.
The police suggested a zone to be searched, but that's about all the information they provided.
We don't know exactly why, but they say it's based on all their evidence and their timeline. They believe that something might have happened in this area.
The area? A narrow canyon in the hills east of the San Francisco Bay. As the search party made its way up the canyon, they tied off, here and there, pink ribbons.
We've got a system of tape marking that we use, and then we report it into the investigators, and they follow up. Everything we're doing here is to support the police effort in bringing back Michelle.
A complication. This area is a haven for the homeless. It's also a notorious dumping ground for murder victims. Here, one of the searchers found an encampment, and inside, a sleeping bag.
Ian, do you want to check out, this looks like a sleeping bag.
Do you want me to pull this bag out?
Yeah.
The bag was empty. But deeper inside the encampment, something else was uncovered. A large bone. This Creek Canyon, it soon became apparent, had been well traveled by both creatures great and small.
It's an animal, some mammal.
But there was another bone at a creek crossing. Searchers had already passed it by when our producer noticed it lying there. Cow bone, probably. And yet...
Where do you think it'd be from? I'm not sure. I'm going to have Ian come check it out. It does look like a thigh bone. A hip joint. Hey Ian, come take a look at this for me. There's no other bones around it, which is kind of interesting.
It's big.
It's pretty big, huh?
That's just a really big ball. Looking at a bone from a large mammal.
Let's tag it and let's do a more thorough article search around here just in case, and then we'll get somebody to get the gear.
You think you can scamper up to that little piece of rebar or whatever that's there and tie a pink ribbon on it for us?
The bone was tagged, sent off to a lab, examined, and yes, it was from the leg of a large mammal. In this case, a human.
Coming up, while Michelle's friends and family are searching, police are making discoveries of their own. Is one tiny clue a key to the mystery?
We found an identification card from the nursing school, but it was not Michelle's.
When Dateline continues.